Good afternoon, everybody. Hi, I'm Dawn Mead, and this is a new recording for AVSocial here on avnation.tv. I'm joined here today, as usual, by my lovely co-host, Kelly Perkins.
Hello, everyone.
And today we are joined by two special guests. We have with us Matthew Shylack, who, let me get the title right, is the Digital Strategy Manager for FameHouse, which is,
Hello.
hi, Matt, thanks for coming. And FameHouse is a digital strategy and marketing firm that deals with companies in the music industry, if I'm correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I saw some very cool big names on your website there, so that's very exciting. We'll let you talk about that here in a minute. But
Sure.
thank you for coming on the show today.
Happy to be here.
And of course, we are joined by our friend Josh Shrago, who is a design engineer at TCOM now, and he's also known as the editor of our blogs here at AV Nation, and for being a general rabble-rouser around the industry, but we love him. Hi, Josh. Thanks for coming today.
Rabble rouser? Whose rabbles have I roused? I do nothing. I make everyone happy and put everyone at ease about absolutely everything. Never a troublemaker. But no, I'm doing good, and thanks for having me on. This should be a good time.
Thanks for having us. And the reason that Josh is here specifically is part of the reason we're doing this show in specific is a blog that Josh wrote on AV Nation recently. A few weeks ago, we had an article come out in our industry, the top 103 AV tweets that you should be following, which was a fantastic article, and I was a little humbled to be included. I know that was the feeling of most people that were on the list. And within a day, I think, of that article coming out, our friends over at Daily Do released their analytics for the year 2015 for the hashtag AV tweets. Um, what they do over at Daily, well, they do a lot of things over at Daily Do, but each year they set up on aka.tv a tracker that basically keeps track of all the statistics and analytics for a variety of different keywords and different things. And so this is the results of their AV tweets hashtag tracking for the entire year. And so that got us thinking about big data and analytics and what on earth that means to us in marketing and what some of these terms are and why we need them. So, Josh, why don't you start us off by telling us a little bit about your blog and about what brought this about?
Sure. So Daily Do has been very kind to the Aviation family, and Adrian over there has been and such a lovely supporter of us that he wanted to share the information for the last year about what AV Tweeps have been tweeting about, who are and he keeps this record on a daily basis at aka.tv, and what we did was we spoke to him, specifically I believe Chris Neto spoke to him, and we managed to get the information of the top 50 in all the categories. So it was who puts out the most tweets, who retweets the most, who gets retweeted the most, who are the most interactive, who's created the most impressions, and the variety of things that sort of go with that. And what I did in the blog was I took that information and tried to just parse it down, because it's a lot of information to take in for those that may or may not follow the Twitter world and understand how analytics apply to big data and how all of this sort of pieces itself together and how to interpret it. So I just sort of tried to parse that down into a digestible, here's what an impression means, here's about retweeting, here is where we can find the most interactive users, and just sort of give people an impression as to what that data is actually telling them. The most surprising statistic I found was that over 10,000 users utilized the hashtag AVTweets last year. The community often seems a lot smaller than that, but we got over 10,000 people that utilized that hashtag in 2015.
10,000 unique users?
Unique users.
Cool.
Awesome.
That is pretty exciting because I didn't imagine we were nearly that large of a community. So let's start with Matthew. You're kind of here. Josh suggested you as someone that deals with this on a daily basis, and this is something that you do as part of your job. What do we do with this info that we track? I mean, what's the point, or how does this apply to our world?
Absolutely. Well, I guess first it would be sort of helpful to quickly sort of talk about what big data is and what it's useful for. So, in short, big data is a large amount of data. It's any variety of statistics that are coming in from technology that you can use to sort of spot larger trends. So what we do typically for our clients is try to visualize what's going on based on different social media activity, things like the reach of certain tweets. I saw that you guys have impressions numbers on a day-by-day basis, things like that. And we try to, match that with our strategies, like what we're trying to accomplish in order to, make a determination on how our activity online is actually affecting our business goals. So what that means for, AVSocial is, and what I think we can maybe start to do today a little bit, is get a look at, where your activity is coming from, when you're getting the most activity, and sort of start to make those larger connections between the activity you have and what you were doing online in those days, and sort of get a sense of, what's the most effective way for you to drive more conversation and ultimately, get more people interested in the AVSocial brand.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, starting there, I did notice, we'll jump ahead a little bit here. We'll come back to some of the things like, what's the difference between impressions and mentions and things like that. But it's interesting that you bring up the chronology, because part of the data file that Josh included on his blog and that's available from Daily Do is a listing of day by day or week by week throughout the entire year of how many thousands of people used the hashtag and how much activity there was. And it's pretty interesting because it averages between 800,000 and about 1 million regularly. But there were definite peaks, the two in particular. There were smaller peaks around ISE's dates and around CES's dates and things like that. But surprisingly, or not in our industry, in the middle of June when we were all at InfoComm, there were about 6 million uses of the term AV tweaks on the different days, 4 to 6 million, which was a significant spike. And Kelly and Josh, maybe one of you can remember, but for some reason there was a big spike on October 15th and 16th. Now I know October's AV month, but was that one of our
Cedia.
shows? Was that Cedia?
That was Cedia last year.
Okay. My company doesn't do home theater at all or resi, so we don't usually. Cedia's not in our scope, but that also makes sense then. InfoComm and Cedia being the two largest spikes throughout the entire year. But if you're watching and you go to download this data file, it is interesting to go through and check the little peaks and valleys of when things occur. Jumping back though, so you talked about impressions, you talked about and the breakdowns on the data itself include number of tweets, number of impressions, user mentions, etc. Is there a difference between a tweet and an impression, or an impression and a mention? Just real quick, either Josh or Matthew wants to jump in and explain it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the type of stuff that we deal in every single day, so happy to jump in. So essentially, impressions are, especially marked on Twitter, they're the number of people that are seeing your tweet. So different platforms calculate that in different ways. For example, on Facebook, an impression means that your post was on the screen for at least 2 seconds. Now, that can be a little bit of like sort of a tricky thing, because if you're scrolling slowly past a post on Facebook, if you're doing it slow enough, that's counting as an impression. So really, it comes down to how many people are seeing your posts. But if I scroll past your post multiple times, that's multiple impressions. That's different between, I guess, on Facebook, especially, they have something called reach, which is different from impression. Reach is more along the lines of unique, how many unique people are seeing your posts. But at the same time, that still goes for how long it's on the screen. It's very it sort of depends on how much people are looking at it. So a much stronger sense of how many people are responding to what you're posting is engagement, which is on Twitter, that would be a combination of, we would define that by a combination of any activity on the tweet. So mentions, so people that are directly replying to your tweet, people that are amplifying it by retweeting it, people that are, Twitter in the back end will also calculate, the number of people that are clicking on a link or clicking on a play button if you have a video. All of these things are indicators that someone's actually taking the time to, actually engage with what you're doing. And, depending on what your business goal is or what, your goal as a community is, you might favor, the amount of people that are actually linking off to your blog post, for example, over just the number of people who have seen, the AVSocial hashtag or tweets.
Okay, so for the CEOs among us that don't get the social media stuff at all, it's more important to have a middle to high number of engagements or replies or retweets, definitely, than millions of just impressions.
Yeah. Well, it really depends on your goal, right? I mean, like we work with brands, like we've worked with Corona, and we've worked with T-Mobile, and one of the things that's very important to them is having their logo in front of a lot of people. And there's also a metric that isn't included on your list, but it's something that some social media companies, depending on the situation, will also report on, which is potential impressions, which is basically how many people could have seen your post. And that might sound a little silly, like the idea that if you have 100 people who amplified your post, and literally the potential impressions number is the number of people, the number of followers of the people who amplified it. So if I have 50 followers on social media and I retweeted your post, the potential impressions there would be 50. Now that doesn't mean that my 50 followers saw your post. It just means that you had the ability to get in front of that many people. And that might seem a little silly, but think about it in the context of like a billboard on like a highway. You have no way of really knowing exactly how many people are looking at a Coors Light logo on a billboard, but you do know roughly the way they sell it how many people are passing by that billboard on a daily basis, and it's sort of an analogous situation there.
So to bring it into our world and in the context of this, we may not have that as a field on our list here, but we do have the top repliers, the top retweeters, the top reach individuals. Mm-hmm. So if I were a startup manufacturer and I wanted to get as many people in the industry aware of my new company, I would go to that list and look at these top repliers and retweeters and active people and maybe target them as potential impressions for my message. If I send them the message and they start replying, they have the network then that amplifies it out.
Yeah, and one of the great things about that is that amplification is really the best way to lead to acquisition, which is what we call it when someone follows your account and starts receiving your posts. So a really significant trend in digital marketing right now is called influencer marketing, and you'll see this all the time on Twitter and Instagram with sponsored posts from people. Like, for example, you'll go on Kim Kardashian's Instagram page and you'll see she's rocking a purse at a very specific angle with the hashtag of the purse and the the mention symbol. You can get paid quite a lot of money to do something like that because of the reach that your particular account has. So that's something that we sort of look at often, looking at our top influencers, we call them. So the people that are naturally engaging with what our brands do the most, or our artists do the most, because we handle a lot of musical artists. And in some cases, seeing what they look at and what type of stuff they like to engage with and amplify, and use that as a way of adjusting our strategies.
I have a question for you. So we have kind of a, I want to say, and I'm sure it goes with any industry you look into, whether it's music or AV or whatnot, but we have kind of a gap between the baby boomers and the millennials and the younger folks who are on Twitter and social media, and they use it all the time. and you get the question constantly of, from some of the older folks, don't waste your time. Why are you doing that? And I try and come up with different responses and hear what people say. I mean, how would you respond to that if the CEO of a company doesn't want you to waste your time doing social media and really doesn't promote it?
So you're basically asking like why would someone pay money to have people posting on their social media pages? Is that like a
why, not necessarily why you'd pay money, but why you wouldn't want your employees doing it?
Okay. Yeah, I think what it comes down to is finding a way to connect with your audience. So in a lot of scenarios, like if you pick a random brand, you might go to their social pages and it'll just look like they're doing advertising, like they're putting up, we have this new product out, or it's more informational.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be very, very valuable. Obviously, you want to have people, know about your products and what you stand for. But what social media is great for, and what the best, I think, social media or companies do, is sort of get the ethos of the company across on social media and develop more of a bond with the people who are following them and interacting with their posts, because that's really a lot of, like, our company we don't call ourselves a social media company. We're a direct to fan company, whether that's like email or personalized apps and things like that. It's really about figuring out the right way to connect with the people that you actually care about.
Okay.
Connect.
No, that's good. That makes sense. It's more of a, kind of gives a face to the name of a company, more personality and character.
Yeah. I guess I would also just say quickly that you obviously would love to monetize on that, and you'd love if you're trying to direct traffic somewhere, or if you're trying to sell a T-shirt or an album. You're going to have much more success if you're developing that bond between fans. It's not like you're just actively just pushing product at them. It's more of a pull relationship where they like what you're doing, they want to support you, or they're more interested in listening to the single because they actually interact with you on a daily basis.
So what would you say is, and this is kind of a reach here, but I'm just curious, like what your ultimate social media scenario would be? And you said you deal with musicians a lot. Like, could you give us an example of like a great scenario where you've perhaps not necessarily monetized, but created a significant relationship or an event or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the artist. First of all, I mean, there are some that it's part of their brand to be a lot more personal with their fans. I think a really great example of this is probably, we work with we've done some work with Tiesto, who is a DJ that sort of takes fans along on his journey. I mean, this guy is like a globe-trotting superstar who's getting paid God knows how much to DJ at clubs around the world. And if you go on his social media channels, he is like extremely active with giving people a window into that lifestyle. Along that same sort of route, he promotes, or not really promotes, but he posts about the stuff that he thinks is really cool. Like he has this whole section of content on his Tumblr page where he's just posting interesting photos of like animals and cars and jets, and like literally giving you an idea of like what Tiesto likes. And that is a way to sort of make his fans sort of understand what he's all about, and what at least what his marketing is all about. And that helps him when he puts out merchandise, or when he puts out a new mix. His mix series is called Club Life. It's not just the title of a mix. It's like people know what they're getting when they're engaging with Tiesto online. Yeah, I guess the opposite of that, like, and I don't work with this band, But one of my favorite bands is out of Long Island, this band called Brand New, and they don't post on social media. They put like a post up every, it might be every month and a half, and the result from that is they cultivate this sort of mysterious, this mysterious persona, and they don't give too much insight into what's going on. So when they actually do post something, all the fans freak out, and they're like, this is like, what's going on? Are they putting an album out? Like, and it'll just be like a photo of them in a studio somewhere, and it'll do as much work as 9 photos in a week of what you guys were eating.
So basically, what you're saying is that you really have to think about, before you get active, who your target audience is and what you think they will engage with or what they will be looking for from a company. So if you're a manufacturer, going back to our industry, you want to think about, I'm selling to the integrators. What do the integrators want? Well, they want assistance with installs, or they want more information about the product to do a better integration. So let's give them those sorts of things, versus an end user who wants like security about, whatever. Yeah, I guess you would just market it differently if you're going directly to the end user, if you're going directly to the manufacturer, if you're going to the IT guy versus the facilities guy, which is a big topic in our industry.
I would just I guess the other thing to keep in mind is that you can, in a lot of cases, market to multiple groups at once. Like, that's it. The tools have changed for marketing. You can reach a lot more people digitally, but the idea that you have to go after a very specific customer segment, it doesn't cancel out the ability for you to go after others. And that's one of the reasons why we always say having a multi-channel strategy across all your different social media platforms or your email list or whatever. It's not just about posting different things on Facebook versus on Twitter so that you give people different reasons to follow you. It's also a sense of like figuring out exactly who you want to be engaging with you, what they respond to, and sort of dictating strategy around that and revising it based on the numbers like this, and finding the pockets of people, of users, whether that's I already forgot your examples. Your manufacturers versus the end users. Finding out what their psychographic activity is sort of like, and how you can sort of get in front of them in a way that seems genuine, or is genuine rather. Yeah.
Excellent. Josh, anything to add? Having Matthew here is brilliant. Obviously, he's the expert, but you brought it up to our awareness as usual.
I'm just a facilitator here. I'll make my comments in my piece, but I defer to experts in this case. Fair. I learned a lot from people that work with Matthew over there at Fame House. Having known some of those guys for several years now, they've been one of my biggest educators in helping promote how I do my social media and how I manage my brand online. Is learning from the people that he works with on a daily basis. So it's a privilege having him here and having the Fame House guys available to me as both colleagues and friends.
And I can tell you, Kelly and I appreciate you sharing that resource and inviting Matthew for coming on the show and educating us as well. It's a great thing. We appreciate it. Kelly, do you have any other questions for Matthew?
Who's your favorite band to work with?
Oh, I'll get in trouble.
I suppose. Sorry.
Yeah, no, my role at Fame House is I sort of oversee a lot of digital strategy. So we have account teams that very specifically work with, like, there's a team that works with Tiesto's manager, and a team that works with M and calls up with Paul Rosenberg and whoever. I come from before I was in the role I am now, I was doing a lot of event marketing. So we work with different festivals. One of my favorites is it's called Mysteryland. It's one of the world's oldest electronic music festivals, and I'm actually not a big electronic music fan at all. I'm more like rock and hip hop and folk music, but they do a festival over Memorial Day weekend on the original Woodstock grounds, and I went out to it 2 years ago. Right when I first started working on the account, they were like, "You don't need to work, just come, like, experience it, see what we're all about." And I was like blown away by like sort of the energy there and like the community aspect of it. So that's probably my, secretly my favorite account. I hope none of my other brands hear that.
It's fine. It's on an AV site. They'll never notice. It'll be fine. Matthew, I do have one question for you, and I mean, it's sort of a self-serving question for me because I've gotten to ask it personally to your teams. If somebody's interested in getting started, because we're a small community in the AV world, but if somebody's looking to just get started, how do you recommend them moving into this world? They've got their accounts and they want to start branching out and they want to start building their brand. Where do you think are some of the good things, some of the good tips for them to begin to reach out?
Yeah, well, they're blogging. Is that
blogging, or just getting involved in Twitter, getting involved in Facebook, and just engaging with the community? Like, what are some of the good tips on how to do that?
I mean, I would say that the best place would be to find groups of like-minded individuals. So, like, if, for example, AVSocial clearly has like a pretty nice community going and talking about the types of things that are probably important to this hypothetical person. I would, like, if I was starting a band and I wanted people to get into it, I would probably seek out different music groups, places like Reddit, blogs online. You really have to start making, regardless of what industry you're in, you have to start making connections. And it's not just like posting a blog and then tweeting like I posted a blog. It's more about it's a little bit more than just a transactional experience like that. Like, you need to be commenting and speaking with other people that have the same passions you do, and then allow your work sort of to shine. Is that kind of what you were talking about?
Perfect.
Cool. I would love to, like, just real quickly, like, dive into some of the stats that you guys have and talk about, like, sort of some, like, next steps, like, where you guys should maybe start to explore.
Certainly. I'm sure our community would love to hear some of that.
Let's do it.
Cool. Well, like I said, I looked over this a little bit last week when Josh first sent it over, and sort of the things that stood out to me the most were you have a pretty exceptional, in your top 50, you have an exceptional number of people that are interacting and using this hashtag, like, repeatedly. Like, you have over 50 people here that are on average speaking about your brand more than once a day, which is, like, pretty incredible. Like, so I guess the first thing I would say is, and I don't know, I see that some of these are your company hashtags and things like that, but seeking out the people that are interacting with it the most and looking, reaching out to them and seeing what they're commenting on and what they're mentioning is like a really great way to get a sense of in what directions you can take your social media. One of the things that I really like, the rapper Lupe Fiasco does this thing where every Sunday he has an hour-long philosophy discussion on his Twitter, and he uses a hashtag, I forget, I think it's like Philosophy Sunday or something like that, and they literally, like, will talk about a topic, and he'll retweet people and he'll mention them and like answer them back, and like really try to foster a discussion, like an hour-long discussion every week. And that's a really, it's not a ton of people that are doing it on a weekly basis. Like, there might be like 50 people total that are actually engaging with him, but those 50 people are getting something out of that is like really, really powerful. Like, they're actually having a discussion with other people that they've never met, and around like a topic that is interesting to them. It would be really cool to, like, start to create these sort of mini events that can sort of draw like a bit of a crowd, a digital crowd. So that would be
Great idea.
Yeah.
Interestingly, we did something like that gosh, back in 2009, 2010, we had a regular monthly AV chat,
Mm-hmm.
and there were only a handful of us that used to participate, but we had some fantastic discussions, and I know a lot of them got picked up and repeated in some of industry print magazines as a result of the ideas or the brainstorming that came out of that. So there's a hint, folks. Maybe we should look at restarting an AV chat once in a while.
But how great, I mean, how invaluable for an organization or a company to be, you know, the experts that are doing a show every week and getting people to come to that and like actually answering legitimate questions and helping people and fostering discussion. That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing that you can't fake either, right? Like, you know, like my team, obviously, we work on a lot of people's social accounts, and everything that we do goes through the brands and the artists and the festivals that we work with. Like, there's not just, it's not like there's just like a kid in our company that's just pretending to be Tiesto. Like, that would never fly for a bajillion reasons.
Yeah.
But like, you can tell when something's authentic, and we really believe that. And you know, 50 people that are like actually having a conversation is so much more valuable than 500 people that are just seeing like a random cool picture. You know, which you know, it's a balance, because obviously you want as many people as possible to see what you're doing, but you know, what it comes down to is affinity for the brand, not just, you know, the reach of the brand.
Well, and if you can affect even just one person, you know, and create even one, you know, valuable relationship, that's cool.
Yeah, and that's where, you know, at least the music industry, that's where it's going. Like, as far as how you can make money, like, there's this massive gap between the access that people have to, you know, music. It's essentially free at this point, and the amount of revenue that they're willing to spend on it. Like, it sort of has gone, you know, in crisscrossing directions. So you're starting to see more and more like bands and artists trying to create like experiences that are true to, you know, what they actually stand for. Like, I was talking to a buddy of mine who works at a promotions company for the country singer Luke Bryan, and he does this excuse me, concert every summer called Crash My Playa, and it's this beach party down in Mexico. Where like his fans come and he brings special guests out, and they do this. It's this big kind of blowout. That's not the kind of thing that you would really see like a singular artist doing 10 years ago. Like, they're like, instead of having fans, you know, buy your $20 CD 6 or 7 times over a decade, they're getting people to come out year over year, spending hundreds of dollars, because they're offering something that's really, really valuable and fun and like is memorable beyond just, you know, the music.
Yeah, the poor music industry. I think you have to get creative to make a living these days.
Yeah.
Well, I know we had a hard stop here. Matthew has to go off to another meeting around 4, so I want to say thank you very much to Matthew Shylock from Famehouse for joining us today and bringing us his digital media expertise in talking about big data. Matthew, if folks want to get in touch with you or find you, do you have a Twitter handle or email, or how do folks find you and or Famehouse?
Well, you can find Famehouse at famehouse.net, and this is going to sound really weird, but I actually don't use social media that much. I have CHY shy is my Twitter handle. But when you spend, you know, 14 hours a day thinking about social media, it's not something that I prioritize when I get home.
You don't? I love hanging out and doing AV stuff at home in my spare time.
I mean, I'm definitely on Facebook. I'm just not posting very often.
I can't remember which stand-up it was, but somebody said, whatever you find cool and fun and exciting, it's somebody else's pain-in-the-ass job. I guess there's some truth to that. Well, Matthew, thank you so much for coming today. Our other guests, quiet for once, though he may be, is our fabulous Josh Shrago, who wrote the blog which kicked off this whole discussion. Josh, let folks know where they can find you in your new job.
As per usual, you can find me on Twitter at JSrago. That's JSRAGO. LinkedIn, AVNation, SoundReason.org. And now you can find me at TCOM, who they are on social media. I was my very first day when I sent out a tweet with their handle. I apparently blew them up to the point where their social media manager walked over to me and went, "Okay, let's talk." So you can find them on Twitter, and I do encourage you following my new company at TEECOM. That's TEECOM. And they also do a lot of activity on LinkedIn, specifically promoting. They do a lot of social outreach here, so I'm really excited to be doing that, which will be fun. But those are the main places, and of course, if you want to email me, you can always find me at josh@avnation.tv.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming, and thanks for hooking us up with Matthew here. As usual, my lovely co-host Kelly's here with us. Kelly, let folks know where they can get in touch with you.
Okay, Kelly Perkins, AVIsystems.com. My Twitter handle is at AVI_Kelly. You can find me on AVSocial, AVNation, kind of the same as these guys.
All right, thank you so much for being here, Kelly. And of course, I'm Dawn Mead. You can find me and my company, net-av.com. That's NetAV. You can find me on Twitter at AVDawn. And of course, you can find me over at AVNation, avnation.tv. Thanks so much, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this discussion of big data and how to use all these crazy numbers that we get periodically. And thanks for coming out. We'll see you next time on AVSocial.